Okay, thanks everyone. So, good morning, good afternoon. We were just talking about all the different time zones here. On behalf of the Learning Bar, I'd like to welcome you to our panel discussion. My name is Lorna Cameron, and I'll be your moderator for this event. Before proceeding, the Learning Bar would like to acknowledge the traditional ancestral territory of the First Peoples in our respective locations on which we're learning, working, and gathering today. So we pay our respects to the members, past and present, with honor and gratitude, as they have stewarded the land throughout the generations. I'm confident that we will continue to work together in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. So let's begin. Today's session, Targeted Teaching, Leveraging Data for Differentiated Instruction, is designed to empower educators with the skills and strategies to use data effectively to ensure every student's unique needs are met. And we brought together a panel of EYE champions, experts in the field, to explore practical strategies, techniques for analyzing and applying data to inform teaching and strategies for adapting instruction to meet individual student needs. And we're excited that you've joined us as we discuss how to create an inclusive and equitable learning environment where all students can thrive. So at this time, I'd like to introduce my colleague. Many of you'll know her, EYE Product Director now, Stephanie
Mhm.
Guignon, who will introduce you to our panelists. So over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Lorna. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to present our three educational leaders who have kindly agreed to join today's session. So first, we have Chris Puro. Chris has been with the Catholic school system in Leduc, Alberta for over 35 years and has had the opportunity to work with a wide range of students with various strengths and challenges. Her teaching experience ranges from kindergarten to grade 6, with the majority of her career focusing on inclusive education and adapting or modifying curriculum to meet student needs. Chris had the opportunity to be a vice principal of a K to 6 school where her learning and understanding of our education system continued to evolve. Her current role as Director of Student Services has provided additional experiences and insights into high school students and various stakeholders' perspectives. Ensuring all students reach their full potential continues to be Chris's passion and mission. Welcome, Chris. Next is Pamela Garnham. Pamela is I want to make sure I get this right, the Superintendent, Secretary Treasurer, and CEO of Portage Prairie School Division in Manitoba. So she wears many hats here. She has 31 years of experience in education, having worked in grades K to 12 as a teacher, resource teacher, guidance counselor, and school administrator. Throughout her career, she has prioritized making students the core of education, ensuring their instructional and developmental needs are met in inclusive regular classrooms, neighborhood schools, and across the whole division. So welcome, Pam. And Heather Morasti rounds out our panel. Heather is a proud member of the Peter Ballantine Cree Nation located in Saskatchewan. She's a dedicated educational leader with over 23 years of experience in the field, focusing her practice on benefiting the Indigenous people and their respective communities. Currently, she serves as a superintendent of student support services with the Athabasca Denesuline Education Authority, sorry about that, Education Authority, and vice president of Yellow Sky and Associated Limited. Before her current position, she served as Senior Director of Education and Superintendent of Special Education with the Meadow Lake Tribal Council and Special Education Consultant with the Saskatchewan Rivers Public School Division. We are thrilled to have the experienced group of panelists with us today, and I know you'll leave inspired with actionable ideas to take back to your classrooms or programs in your schools. So back to you, Lorna.
Thank you, Stephanie. So the format for today will be a 30-minute panel discussion followed by a question and answer period. During the question and answer, we welcome you to unmute yourself and ask our panel any questions you may have. You may also place your questions in the chat as we move through the panel discussion today. Stephanie is going to monitor the chat and will ensure that all your questions are addressed here or after the session. So let's dive in. So as we explore the role of assessments in supporting student success, I'd like to hear how using the early years evaluation teacher assessment aligns with the division's vision and purpose. So I'd like to start with you, Chris. How does using the EYETA assessment support your district's vision and purpose for student success? And additionally, like what benefits do you see in using the EYETA?
Thanks, Lorna. Yeah, first of all, I just want to welcome this opportunity because I've been a big EYE advocate, both or as a kindergarten teacher, then in admin, and now divisionally. So it's something close and dear to my heart that I really want to roll forward. So, and it really does directly support our district vision. We align our mission with high quality, equitable education. So that gives us that assessment piece, tells us where kids are at. Really like the piece that it assesses the whole child, all those 5 domains. We're looking at all aspects of a 5-year-old instead of trying to see little bits of them in a paper and pencil activity. That early education or identification piece is really important. Our hope is always to reduce further our gaps as they continue their learning. And we really want to build that collaborative system with parents and schools. And we find that the EYE really allows us to do that. Through the early years evaluation, we're able to really share students' strengths and areas of growth with parents and also start that really collaborative conversation that we have things that we can do to help your child to progress in their education journey. Also, that the data and intervention system really provides that vital information to our teachers so they know why they are putting these things in place and they can see the progress of their students. We, like I said, it really recognized that immense value of really getting in there early, seeing what kids do in a group setting, which is more developmentally appropriate for 5-year-olds to see what they can and cannot do, and then allowing us to provide explicit instruction, practice, and reinforcement of those skills. So you can probably guess I'm pretty much a champion of it because I've seen it in action over the years. So I continually bring it up in our division to recognize all the aspects of it that can be utilized. So, yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Pam, Heather, what are your thoughts on aligning to that district vision and purpose?
Okay, so in Portage Prairie School Division, it aligns very well with our mission, but what it really aligns with is we have developed a divisional goals for transformative learning. We have 5, and the child's at the center, and it embeds social emotional learning. Assessment is instruction, tasks are meaningful, and competency and knowledges are taught. So with us, that EYE assessment just fulfills all of those 5 areas because it is all about the student and what the student and the skills that the student has. And when they're coming in, and what is so great about the EYE is the fact that by October, November, we have data-driven results that we can use to help all of our students across the division progress and move on and focus on their areas of need. So it is truly a learner-centered model, which we really, really like about that.
Thanks. And Heather, I want to give you a chance for this first initial question before I move on to some others. What are your thoughts?
Thanks so much, Lorna and Stephanie, and to the Learning Bar for this opportunity. I too am a EYE champion. When I was working with Sask River's Public School Division about 14 years ago, I was their EYE trainer and early learning support. So I really got to dig down into it and see now, 14 years later, the differences in provincial rollouts as well as First Nation rollouts. So Currently, I am working at the Athatbasca Denesuline Education Authority. And Stephanie, don't feel bad. I butchered it for the first 2 years I worked here. So I finally learned how to say it, which is wonderful. And we are located in northern Saskatchewan. So our central office is in Prince Albert because that's the closest airport to our three communities, which two of them are located very close to the Northwest Territory border. And most of them are flying communities, with the exception of a ice road sometimes in the wintertime. So we're very isolated, and we are very remote with very little services in comparison to some of our city centers. So we have a little bit of, some challenges and also some really good opportunities with our location. And our vision is really to prepare our youth so that they're productive, responsible citizens, both in their Dene communities as well as in the greater society. And so we want to make sure that our kids are ready academically, but also they're strong in who they are and their Dene values and culture, their faith and their language. So what I find with the EYE is that not all of our kids have the same access to supports and services. And so from 0 to 4, we know what kind of growth and development happens there. And sometimes we'll get them in for pre-K, and sometimes they come to us in kindergarten. So with all the different experiences and stuff like that, it really gives us an opportunity to see where our kids are at and then offer opportunities so that we can level that playing field for them. Because we all know early intervention really makes the difference. And also it's an opportunity for parents, and I know we'll talk a little bit about this later, but for parents to be involved. And, if they're involved early and it's a positive experience, they're more likely to stay involved throughout their child's learning career. And so that's one of our big things that we use EYE to, is to facilitate some of that parent engagement or caregiver engagement. On the end where, finances come in and things like that, the EYE data I've found has been very supportive in resource allocation, providing training and things like that. So if we need certain kinds of furniture or more resources for classrooms, we can use that data to build our case in a sense. And also, if a kindergarten classroom does not have gym class and they need it because they need more opportunities in that area, I just tell those teachers to run gym in the hallway or right outside the principal's office, and suddenly they have gym time. So those results really help in a number of different ways across our system. So thank you.
Thanks. And I know maybe you'll touch on this a little bit later, Pam. You spent a large amount of dollars upgrading your classrooms to play-based classrooms. Yeah,
Would you
based
like
on.
me? I could speak
Sure,
now if you
sure,
want.
yeah.
Sure. So with our EYE assessment, I started to look at actually what was in the kindergarten rooms, because twice a year I go to each school team and I meet with the school team. We specifically look at the EYE results and what needs to happen in their schools. And one of the first schools that I went into their kindergarten room and said, no, this isn't good. Like we need more play-based stuff. So we revamped that kindergarten room, and then it just spiraled into almost all of them have been revamped. So I've spent probably over $120,000 just making sure each classroom is equipped with play-based learning and proper play-based learning. And then actually this year in grade 1 in one of our schools, they are doing an academic play-based learning, because they're still finding the needs of the kids going from kindergarten into grade 1 are still significant. And so they wanted to add that component to it. So we've set up one grade 1 class, and by the sounds of things, I'm probably going to have to look for funds for the other grade 1 classes, because it's been very successful in this school. Parents are very engaged. I've been receiving reports from the school with pictures of kids with smiles. They love grade 1. Comments from parents on how their child is so happy to go to school every day. And so we're seeing a significant improvement in their attendance and their academic improving as well. So
That's wonderful, Pam. That's truly something to celebrate. And that's a good lead into a question I was just going to ask Chris now. So um, you had mentioned, I think you had said teamwork divides the task. And I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on that and how you collaboratively pull together all those supports for those kindergarten teachers with the assessment.
Yeah, just noting that teachers always have concerns, and they what we heard was that they are not really sure about their observations. So, if you have a team approach, you get that little bit more broader perspective. So we've really tried to go into our schools. We have a specialized learning support team here at central office with an SLP and an OT and myself. Small but mighty, but we get to all the schools. And we've been going in and kind of working with the kindergarten teachers, just using that observation model, because I think a lot of teachers were still pulling out students to do some of the assessment, where we want to really capitalize on that developmentally appropriate way of assessing kindergarten students. So then we kind of looked at what other staff could we kind of bring in through the school that would support those kindergarten teachers, some who are very new. So it can be a little bit daunting for them. So we have learning support facilitators in our schools, and they would walk alongside. We might direct a little more support staff in there during the EYE assessment period, just to be an extra hand. And then we've got our administrators going in, because I thought it might be best if administrators actually saw the process and were part of it.
Yeah.
So it's been working quite well. Some other things we've done is if we have two kindergarten classes, we can buddy them up a little bit, just making for smaller observation groups. And then just, being there for teachers as they're walking through it, I think has been very helpful. They've reached out to us quite a bit. So I'm seeing that as a plus.
Thanks, Chris. So I think understanding how those assessments benefit students is key, but equally important is assuring that the teachers feel confident and prepared to implement them effectively. And I've loved that you brought into the fold there your administrators. I know I've said it before, some of you may have heard me say this in a session, that when I was an administrator, I didn't have that full understanding of the assessment. So I think that's key. It's crucial. I want to shift our discussion a little bit here now to how the data collected can be that powerful tool for teachers. And I wanted to start with you, Heather. So how does using the assessment affirm and leverage your teachers' existing knowledge about their students?
Well, like I said, in kindergarten, it's sometimes their first opportunity or introduction into school. And so, some of our kids, when they get a few years in, we've got a big file on them. And so our kids are coming in new to us and new to the school quite often. And so it gives us an opportunity to really get to know what kind of skills they're coming with. And, we believe that our kids are a gift from our Creator, and that it's our privilege to be part of their life and helping them develop those gifts and those strengths. And so this is just another avenue that teachers can use to try and uncover some of those kids' gifts. And quite often I've had teachers say that they were quite surprised. They either, I didn't know they could do that, or I thought they could do that. And so I know, like, traditionally we think little kids, it's play, and the importance of it is often in the academics in the older grades. And having the data and all the information and that to put in front of principals and parents and some of our partners and stakeholders is really important, because it shows how important it actually is to really invest in our early learning programs and in our teachers. And so a lot of that data helps us, one, understand our kids' needs, drive some of our resource purchases, as well as the PD, or professional development and training, that we would bring in for our teachers, because it's just as important, if not more important, to be supporting those classrooms and those educators for sure. So when it comes to the data, I use it to leverage a lot of things, and it's really, really helpful. So also with teachers, if we have a need and we look back at the data, not that it's the be all and end all, but it just seems that you need data to kind of move forward in some things. And so we use that, but also the teachers, they get to know their kids on a different basis too. So
Yeah, no, for sure. So those assessments, they're not only providing the insights, but they're validating what educators already know about their students. And I know that you shared an example of helping to guide targeted interventions earlier, Chris, and I was hoping that you wouldn't mind sharing that with this. You were talking about how the product led to meaningful interventions for a specific group of students.
Yeah, so again, we've tried something a little bit different again this year. So our learning support team, our SLPs and OTs and myself kind of thought we would go into classrooms with kind of the specific lens of maybe their specialties. So like the SLP, we're looking at the communication piece of the data. The OT was looking at the fine and gross motor. I kind of looked at the cognitive piece. And that allowed us to kind of bring that to the teacher's attention. We actually trialed some of the lessons so the teacher would see how that fit in and how that addressed the needs of all the students in the class. We are big in our division on universal supports. So we really look at what are things we can put in place for all students so that they can access them if they need it. The iData kind of allowed us to show that to the teachers, like this is an area of need for your students, or your class as a whole almost, and how can we implicitly teach some of those skills and then follow up with that. So the class I went into, actually, it was wonderful to be in kindergarten again. Actually, I just enjoyed it to no end. You kind of forget, but very interesting class, very wide range of strengths and areas of need, as many kindergartens are right now. And I did one activity, but was able to see with the same lesson and activity, such a wide range of needs with students. We had students that were actually needing to just work on letter formation, where another student's ready to write 2 or 3 sentences. So when I showed that to the teacher, it was just such a great conversation. You don't have to change your activity, but you can, adjust what each student needs to do and what they're actually working on. So I just appreciate that. And then it's kind of that piece where you can share that with the parents as well. Like, this is why we're doing that, right? So
Yeah.
It was a great opportunity. I would highly suggest going into kindergarten rooms if you have a chance.
I spent 16 years at secondary, and yes, it was a big awakening when I went into the elementary. Sometimes that's where I escaped for, the song of the day. The kindergarten teacher would play his guitar. Yes, I know what you mean exactly. So speaking of activities, Heather, what ways have you seen? I want to specifically focus here on the EYE 100 activities. In what ways have you seen that data be used to address both individual and whole class needs using
Well,
those?
one
Yeah.
thing that we use the data for is when, we're going to go into a classroom, we have, like Chris said, there's a widespread of needs, right? And so what we do is we look at all of our results, and we'll take a center that a teacher already has set up, and then we'll look at, okay, well, what skills is this center targeting, and is there anything that we could tweak to add in and provide more opportunities with this skill or that skill. And so we try and get teachers to use their imaginations to pull in and have one thing that would suit a lot of kids, rather than having these individual things all the time for our kids. And, with them playing together at these centers, or whatever lesson it is or opportunity that's there for them, they're learning from each other as well. And we also teach and train and show our teachers how to interact with kids. So one thing that we had done when I was working at the Meadow Lake Travel Council is that we had, they weren't we didn't call them EAs. They were early learning interventionists. It was funding that we received from the federal government for early learning programs. And we had all of our early learning interventionists go through the Hannon program of learning language and loving it. And it was a really great program that supported our early learning interventionists and having those interactions and conversations with kids and bringing in the parents as well. So part of their job was to be in the classroom, but the other part was to provide at least one home visit per child per month. And we created backpacks full of different activities that would target the different skills from the EYE. And they would go do the home visits and they would model the playing and talking with parents and the child and stuff. And so it was also following their lead. So if parents were cooking, they would join them in the cooking and things like that. And the having those conversations and that training and supporting them in that, it made a world of difference. We actually had the cohort that started it. By the time they got to grade 3, those kids who went through it in pre-K and K were in the green zone and reading by the time they were done in grade 3. I know Inspire did a research paper on us for that. And so that is something we are going to try and implement here. So this year is kind of the first year we are moving into supporting EYE on a greater scale in our early learning programs. We are a new education authority in Saskatchewan, so we're in our 5th year, so really at its infancy, especially since our first couple of years were during COVID. So we try and not count them. We're really maybe 3 years old. And so our focus is going to be on early learning in the fall, with a lot of changes coming in. So some of those home visits and the early learning interventionists and the learning language and loving it will all be paired and supporting our early learning programs. But with differentiation, once you show teachers just a couple examples, they just kind of run with it. And, they use their imaginations. And I think it's really good because they can pull in their own gifts and areas of experience and things that they enjoy and really get creative and get involved and get on the floor and play with those kids, right? And get involved in some of those centers and activities. And like you said, Lorna and Chris, when I've had enough, I go sit in a kindergarten or pre-K classroom, right? I might end up with, snot on me or juice or something. But that just kind of recharges me seeing those kids and
Yeah.
having fun and smiling with them. So thank you.
Thanks, Heather. And I was really happy that you were able to join us today as well. You kind of give that, like I think you said in your infancy, you're just starting out using the assessment versus, Pam and Chris have been using it for a number of years. So you're able to give like that different perspective, I think is going to benefit our other listeners today. So appreciate that. I'd like to go back to Pam, and we had talked about the tendency to view the assessment as the sole responsibility of the kindergarten teacher. And so I just wanted to ask how you are ensuring that the specialist and the support staff in your division are actively involved in those kiddos in kindergarten, their progress.
So in our division, as I said earlier, once we get our EYE results in, we meet with each school team, and in the school team the specialists are involved in that part. We invite them in, and so that everybody at that school knows these are the needs of our kindergarten students, from OTPT to fine motor, gross motor. When we're doing the assessment, we actually include the phys ed and the music teachers in the assessment with patterning and looking at those gross motor skills. So that's really good, so that they have a focus on what they should be looking for in our students. But I really find that meeting that we have, and when we have it as a team, then the whole team is aware of the needs of that whole entire kindergarten community in that school. And then at a divisional level, what I do is I share the results across the division with our administrators, because when I'm looking at supporting different schools, so sometimes you get the question, well, this school is getting all of this. Why? Well, the needs in this kindergarten class are much more significant than the needs in your school. And so when you can actually show them that, they're like, okay, I understand, I get it. Like for example, I'm looking at towards the end of this year, once I can hire a university student, I'm actually going to split I have two 50% kindergartens, and I'm going to make them, when I'm able to, make them all day, every day kindergarten, just to advance it a little bit more for those students. And my hope, because both schools are also tagged as community schools as well, so they've already been recognized that there are some socioeconomic needs in this area, and some children living in extreme poverty, and so what we're hoping to do is, if I can find that right person for kindergarten, is train them with this veteran kindergarten teacher for the 2 months, and then in the fall have 100% kindergarten in both of those schools. Because some of you may not be aware, but in Manitoba, kindergarten is only half-time. We're only funded for it half-time, so I have to find other resources to support a full-time kindergarten teacher and a kindergarten program. The only concern I'll be running into is space concerns if I want to do it if I end up wanting to do it in all of my schools. I just don't have space for 2 full-time kindergarten classes. So we're actually applying for portables now in some of our schools to try to have that, because we know portables will take a while. So to have that with a vision down the road, just to be forward thinking and have that vision down the road. So it takes a community, it takes a school community and a community, a village to raise all of our kids, and our greatest needs, they come in, and as everyone that is familiar with the eye, we realize most of our kids are coming in the red and yellow zone and not as many coming in the green zone. And for me, watching that flip by the end of the year, because you have those targeted interventions, is fantastic. And one thing our kindergarten teachers are doing is they're actually the parent activities. What a couple of them have discovered, and we've asked all of them to do it, is we've actually laminated them all. They have them in little kits in their classrooms. So if an EA pops in and says, I have 10 minutes, because the data is so precise, the teacher can go, okay, take Pam over here. She needs to work on this, and here's a quick activity. So it's all set, ready to go. And we also send those once a week. We send with a newsletter, a kindergarten newsletter. We send home an activity to remind parents, here, you can do these with your kids at home. So
That's wonderful. I just want to touch on something that you mentioned there, Pam. So I know that we have plans, action plans for in the EYE toolkit. I think that you had mentioned before that you have your own version of an action plan.
yeah,
Who,
you want me to, oh, see, I'll let you finish
yeah.
answering your
No, I
question.
was just going to say, who's responsible for owning that, and how does that play into?
So the school team's responsible for owning the whole plan, but the teacher's part of implementing the plan. Also, I have an administrator of student services, which she spends probably 25% of her job just kindergarten, because that's how important we feel it is. And she works with all of the kindergarten teachers and with all of the school teams as well. So her and I go to those meetings together. And so we have taken the EYE action plan and we've just kind of adapted it a little bit so it can target maybe more than one student. But we do have some of them on individual student specific plans. But like that action plan is a very good foundation of, okay, I have these many kids that need to work on the cognitive domain in this. So then she's able to take some of the I-100 activities, sometimes make them into centers if you can. And sometimes when, like we go all hands on deck, September, October, November, like our speech are in our kindergarten classrooms, we assign EAs. So it's whenever there's a body, if you can work with a small group of kids on a targeted intervention, then that's perfect, because we know that these kids need to focus on this area to help support them. So
Okay, thanks. I forget who might have said this, Chris, Heather, or Pam, before, but earlier it was mentioned that one of the main tenets is the assessment allows educators to build those relationships with the families and individualize those children's needs. So Heather, I'm just wondering, how do your educators share the results with the families? That's a question we're often asked, what others are doing.
Yeah, well, what I really like those individual reports to share with parents. And so just speaking from experience from being in provincial schools as well as in our First Nations and currently where I am, that visual piece is really easy to understand. And when you explain to parents that, what the colors mean, because sometimes you see red and it's like, uh-oh, right? Um, you just explain to parents that this is an area where we just need to, provide them some more opportunities to learn and develop. And so when you share that with them and that understanding, and then also provide them with some of the activities that they can be doing at home, you get a lot of buy-in. And one thing we had done is once we have our individual meetings is we have done parent engagement nights where we have different activities set up that target the different skills or a variety of the skills with stuff that you can find in your house. So we don't have a Walmart anywhere close to us. We have one little store in our community, and quite often they're very expensive and very limited in what they have. And so, whether it's a laundry basket and toilet paper, and you roll up some socks and do some toilet bowl or toilet roll bowling, we show them how to do that, and even using rice and strainers and things like that, how to play and show them that with some of the skills that they're building, playing with Fruit Loops and stuff like that, things that they would have in their house, and parents tend to say, well, I could do that. That's easy. And then when they're coming in to visit, be like, I did this at home and they really liked it. And, so I think it really builds that relationship and that bridge between home and school. And, historically, we know education and schools, the system hasn't been great for our First Nations people, to say the least. And so there's a little apprehension in coming to school. And, with some of our parents who might not have had a good experience or aren't able to read themselves, it is a bit intimidating. And so with the visual report, that aspect, and showing them how to play and have fun with their kids has been really positive for us and very successful. And so next year we will be having parent engagement nights every month in each of our schools for pre-K and K, where they will get to learn to play with their kids and have conversations and all of those fun things. But we also are looking for some additional funding, like everyone else, to be able to send books and materials home and things like that, so parents can be doing some more of those activities at home as well.
I love that. Parent engagement nights. That's my new best practice example, Stephanie.
So can I just say something too about the
Sure.
report? So what we
Yeah.
do in Portage is in Manitoba, there's not a standardized kindergarten report card. So what we did in Portage for the first term and the last term, we actually used the assessment as our report card, and we're able to merge it with our comments. So the parent, it looks like a report card from any other student in our division. So it has like the front and the back look exactly the same. And then the assessment is put in there, and then the teacher is able to comment on each area of the assessment. And then that will stay with the student because we're able to store it in our student information system. And parents really like that because we do the report, we send the report card before parent teacher for them. And then the parent comes in at parent teacher, and we're really be able to dig in deep into that assessment with them. And like Heather said, sometimes the colors really worry the parents. So sometimes what we do is we'll send it home in black and white instead of in grayscale instead of color. And we have a lot of EAL families, so we're also in the process of trying to convert it into their language as well, so that the language barrier doesn't become a barrier for the parents, so they fully understand where their child is at and what they need to focus on. But Heather, I really like that those engagement nights. What we do for our middle reporting is we do a student-led portfolio. It's kind of like a parent engagement, but I think that's a really great idea you had there.
Yeah. Okay, so the last theme today that I'm just looking at the time here that I want to touch on is the rich information the assessment provides to help the principal, incoming teacher, and families plan for that entry into grade 1. So we have various tools and reports in the system, such as a classroom builder. But I just wanted to ask each of you, how do you how does that happen in your divisions, in your schools?
So in Portage, what we do is we use your classroom builder. And then we give the report to the grade 1 teacher, and then we provide an opportunity with some release time so the kindergarten and the grade 1 teachers can meet in that each school and really dive in deep into what the students are going to need moving forward into grade 1. Thus, that's how my little pilot project started in grade 1 in that one school, was they took a real look at the data, and this is what the grade 1 teachers felt, that they need to still continue to support that play-based. And so we find that that's very effective, just the teachers having an opportunity to sit down and talk and look at the data and the data that's going into their classroom. And when you do it in June, at least it's not September and the teacher's finding all of this out. She has the summers, to reflect and think, and then all the other supports that we can offer in each school and at the divisional level, our student services supports. As I believe it was Chris that said universally how we can support all of our students. Then the teacher can access specific people if they need to, or like our numeracy team, our literacy team, our behavior team, so that they can say, okay, well, this is what my composition of my classroom is going to look like. What are some ideas? What are some things that I can do? So they have a really good opportunity to be prepared for that class come September.
Chris.
Yeah, we are doing sort of the same kinds of things, other than we're sort of new to it. It isn't a really well defined system in our schools yet. So we've been brainstorming a little bit. We do have an opportunity to look at the data, but we were thinking of maybe even switching for an afternoon or something. The grade 1 teachers go into the kindergarten class, and then the kindergarten kids go see the grade 1 teacher, and just to get a sense of what's the flow. Because I noticed when I went into the kindergarten class, each one has its own unique little flow and levels of engagement, and just you get a little sense of the kids. And then looking at the data might make it more personable, I guess, and more real for them. So that's just an idea we've kind of thrown around. We haven't done it yet, and we haven't really approached schools about doing it yet. So it'll be we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah. Heather, what are your thoughts?
Well, we're kind of in the same boat as Chris. We're, this is new to us in this division. And so having some of those transition meetings, we do it with our student support services programming, special education. And so we do a lot of that transitioning for all of our kids there. And we'd like to bring in very similar, the model for that transition, because like Chris said, there's a big difference between our kindergarten classrooms and grade 1. It's almost like you go from this play-based to a school, like with desks, and it's very structured. And so really a lot of kids would benefit from that in all the grades. Nice, comfortable, non-institutionalized kind of classrooms that we would like to spread throughout our schools. But definitely having those transition meetings between kindergarten and grade 1, we're going to implement those as well. We have learning support teachers, so special ed teachers in each of our school. And then at our division office, we have student support services coordinators. So I have 2 absolutely brilliant and fantastic ladies who go up to our communities. They're in the school for a week every other week, and they're providing a lot of that training and the support and those transitions, because we're trying to build capacity within our own staff as well. And so, I really really appreciate what Pam and Chris have been saying and giving us some ideas so we can develop more of a kind of a framework on what that's going to look like. So thank you, ladies, for sharing those ideas.
Thank you. Okay, so before we wrap up today, I'd like to open the floor to questions. It's a great opportunity to dive deeper into any of the points that you've heard from Chris and Heather and Pam. And, if there's anything else on your mind, you want to ask, share your thoughts, ask for clarification. We just like to keep the conversation going for a bit. So, Stephanie, did we have any questions in the chat, first of all?
We did have a question that came in and just directly to me, and it was about the short version of the EYETA. And this person was asking about if any of the people here today would share their experience using the short version of the EYETA.
Yeah, we did implement that a couple of years ago, and it was very well received. So what feedback I've gotten is that they can still get a really good read on the students and those specific skills, but the time has been reduced, and they felt that was beneficial. I think part of that is our provincial government has just instituted mandatory screens for all kindergartens in literacy and numeracy in January, but it's a very much a paper pencil kind of activity. And so it's been helpful that the EYE is shortened. My hope is, though, that the shortened sort of allows them to grow in some of the areas and get a little bit deeper in the observation pieces. So I'm just writing down, I've learned so much from you guys in here today, and just, working with teachers of how to observe and what are you looking for. So I'm curious maybe to explore that further, but overall it was a good response when we went to the shortened version.
That's good to hear. Lauren, I think you're still muted.
Pamela or Heather, Pam, do you use the shortened version?
Yeah, we used the shortened version, and the teachers really appreciated the shortened version. And we added a few of our own questions to the shortened version. And then this year we added a couple of more or changed up a couple of our questions for the shortened version. But we've been very happy with using it, and we found that the results we believe would be the same if we used the long version as compared to the shortened version. So and again, and it's been great too, because we have 9 Hutterite colony schools, and we were even able to change some of the questions in consultation with the learning bar so that they could reflect more of a colony life. Because for example, people in my community, they might not know who a barber or hairdresser is, because they do that in their usually in their home communities, but they'll know the cook, the head cook, and the carpenter. And so we changed it so it was a reflection of their community. So that was a great benefit from the first year we did it to the second and third year and so on. So.
Lorna, you're still on mute, but I'm going to assume you're just turning it over to me.
I'm just losing it here at the end. Yes.
Sorry. So we also use the short form. So prior to me coming on board, we had a coordinator who would go out and do all the assessments for EYE, TA, and DA. And what I find is that when you have an external person who these kids don't know, and they're little bitty kids, right? So, they've already built the trust with their teacher, and they're in an environment that they're familiar with, that it's really important that the teacher does the assessments. Plus, they have more time to be able to observe, more opportunities to observe, because when we had our coordinator doing it, and bless her heart, wonderful woman, we can only fly in in at certain times. And so if a child isn't there during that week that we're there, they kind of miss out. And so what we did this year is we trained all of our pre-K and K teachers in the EYE assessments. And then I went up and I supported and kind of modeled how to do some of it. And then they would be able to do some while I observed and was there to help support them in it. And so now next year, they will be retrained and refreshed, and then they'll be taking more of it on themselves. That way, during that entire assessment period, they have multiple times that they would be able to do it. And we had to delay a lot of our assessments because multiple times, because of weather and plain mechanical issues, we were delayed by about 6 weeks. So having the teachers trained to do it there in the communities is much more important, I think. And also they're able to see their kids. I'm not there every day, and I'm not there doing the assessments and meeting with parents and things like they are. And so I think it's really important that they're trained. We build that capacity and support them in that area rather than people from central office doing it. So.
Yeah, that's a key bit of advice, Heather. Thank you for sharing
Well,
that.
and the short version was a nice first step in training, right? It wasn't as overwhelming.
Yeah.
And sometimes we say, here's what it was, and this is what we're doing now, and we'll build up. You get a lot more buy-in.
Yes.
Thank you, Lorna.
Sure. Would anyone else here like to unmute, have questions for our panelist? Or maybe there's something in the chat, Stephanie. Anything else
There's
come
no
in?
other questions in the chat right now. But if anyone has anything, please feel free to add it.
So in Portage, when we do our training, when we first initiated the eye, we took 2 days and trained every single one of our kindergarten teachers. And so then what we've done now, because we did that in the fall, so what we do now is in May and June, if we know we're going to have a change in a kindergarten teacher, we will train the person then. We also provided each kindergarten teacher with an iPad and an Apple Pencil or a stylus, so that they're able, if they want to, they can, as they're doing the assessments, they can start putting stuff directly into the database if they choose to, or and just to make notes. So they found that very helpful as well. But by doing the training in May and June now, we're like, so it's like right from September, they're ready to go, and they can start looking for different aspects of the assessment. Even though we're not doing the assessment yet, they can still start looking at different things, and in getting them familiar with the eye activities and the parent activities. Like I said earlier, we send those home once a week, but when we do our welcome to kindergarten in May, June, we'll send home 5 or 6 of those parent activities. These are some things you can work with on your child over the summer, and just to remind them that. And then we try to give every child a book as well. Like we send home a book in their little kit and everything that they would need. It's kind of like Heather said, everything that you need is in your kitchen. You can do everything that you want if you use the stuff that's in your house. You don't have to go out and buy a bunch of special stuff. So like, that's the really nice thing about the extra supports that are in this program that a lot of people don't dive into, and we're making our teachers dive into it. And one other thing we do too is in June, we get all of the kindergarten teachers together and we have a PD day for them. So we talk about the eye, and we talk about different literacy and numeracy ideas or activities that they can do in research. But it's one great way for the division or the district to get feedback from a group of teachers. Like, for example, my very first year I had them, because I also do the calendar for the school year. They told me how horrible 3-day weeks are, and I never looked at it from a kindergarten perspective. So now, flash forward 5 years later, every time I'm doing the calendar now, I'm making sure that there are no 3-day weeks for our kindergarten kids, because you didn't really think about the impact that had on them. And when they explained it to you, you're like, that's a really good idea. Never looked at it from that. So just getting that tiny little feedback from them changed everything. And then getting the feedback the next year. And when we do these kindergarten meetings, like numeracy's there, literacy's there, OT's there, PT's there, like everybody is there at the table for these kindergarten teachers to discuss and share. And then a couple of the kindergarten teachers will present some things that they've been doing throughout the year just to spark ideas.
Thanks. Just looking to see if I was on muted. No, but that made me think, Pam, of a conversation we had not too long ago. There was a coordinator who wanted to do a feedback survey with the kindergarten teachers just to collect, how could we, keep moving this forward? How can we, best practices for implementing? And so it was throughout the year doing some periodic feedback checks with our teachers. And so that's a good point, just looking at it from their perspective and how can we support them. Are there any other questions in our group?
I don't see any questions, but I did want to mention that the Learning Bar is actually conducting a national research study, collecting data from educators across Canada to really get a sense of what's working well in the schools and identifying ways to support staff well-being. So I'm going to put a link in the chat comment. If you have just a couple of minutes, it's a pretty short survey. We would love to get your feedback from the survey, and if you want to share it with your staff as well. So I'm going to just post that now. There we go. So just click on that link and it'll take you directly to the survey. And like I said, we're collecting feedback from educators across Canada.
Thank you, Stephanie. So should I practice my teacher wait time here? Or
Yes.
should I give the gift of 2 minutes back? Okay, well, seeing no further questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up today. I want to thank you all for your time and your contributions. A special thanks to our panelists, Chris and Pam and Heather, for sharing their insights. I saw Chris taking notes. I was trying to take mental notes of best practices from each of you moving forward, but just the tremendous amount of experience and insight the three of you have into using the assessment. We really appreciated you sharing that today with other clients, and it's been a really valuable discussion and one we would like to continue. So our fantastic marketing team will follow up with a few resources to support your work, along with a recording of today's events. And so please feel free to share these with your team. And again, you can reach out to us at any time. You want to, some more information on anything that was mentioned today or resources, please connect with us and we'll share those with you. So thank you, Chris, Heather, Pam, and Stephanie for keeping me on track.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Yes, I got lots of notes I can try things out here. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this panel.
Thanks. Okay, take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and week.